Spring is an exciting time to be in the woods, and you can find things like this bear track in the newly growing grasses. So let's go see what else we can find out here on the second day of spring. It's the second day of spring, and already the bears have been out and about using this trail. And this is a trail that they've been using for many years now, but there's new evidence on it in the form of these disturbed pine needles. Note how they were pushed out of this area, pushed forward in the direction of this lower left corner. And then they go underneath this log right here. And you can see down here also some disturbed pine needles that have been scuffed forward here where the bear has been walking. And right here is also some disturbance where you can see the soil underneath has been disturbed as well as the needles have been pushed forward. So this is kind of cool because the bear has been using this trail, and it was raining a couple days ago. So it looks like most of this was made after the rain. You can see the disturbance right in here where the bear has been stepping. The pine needles here kicked forward from right here. Up here is a really interesting place where it has to step over a log, and so there's a flattened area right here, right before it plants that foot, steps over the log and lands over there. And then up here, you can see in this flattened area right here, note how it's been compressed by the foot right here, and also some of the moss has been pushed forward as the bear made its way this direction. So this trail is showing some beginnings of usage right now. There's another flattened area, and it's only the second day of spring. So from here, you can pick them out right here, right there, up here, up there, and so on and so forth. Then it goes on down the trail. But I just thought I'd show you fresh use on a trail that has been not used all winter while the bears have been sleeping. Bear trails in spring grass are a little easier to see because they very easily resemble human trails in that there are alternating footsteps, but each of these is actually front and hind. It's a lot longer than a human foot because it is the front and the hind track of the black bear. So you notice how they alternate, and each one of these shows quite a bit of flattening of the grass in here because a large foot made this imprint. See how this has all been crushed down and broken in here? These grasses are actually broken by the weight of the animal. So it was a heavier animal. At least the size of a human, if not bigger. And right here, it looks like the bear did some traveling back and forth, which they do when they're making their stomp trails, which is how they mark scent. So a bear will actually go up stomping and come back stomping. And that might be what happened here because these are going in both directions. This one, the grass is laid down that direction, which is the direction of travel, and this one is the opposite. It's going that way. So the bear did turn around here and make a couple of loops back through, and look right there, it's stomped down really well. You can see how the vegetation's just kind of been mashed into the ground. So that tells you that it turned around right about there and went back and forth. So it went back and forth over this trail a couple of times, just stomping as it went. That activity will increase as we get more into summer. Right now it's only the second day of spring, but you know, bears are awake. They're out doing their thing and creating their trails. Last summer, this particular shrub right here got knocked over by a bear that straddled it. That's why it's leaning in that direction. It appears that the bear was also here because last week this sapling was still standing, although it was getting beat up. All last summer, if you have seen any of my other videos, you probably saw how the bears were beating up this particular Douglas fir sapling. And now it's knocked over. So it had been standing up, and it was standing up all winter, but now it's been knocked over. So it looks like the bear did some scent marking on it. There's also some indication of damage here to this huckleberry. So it looks like that is now involved in the scent marking rituals. I had a trail camera on this, so it'll be really interesting to see if the camera captured this action, as long as the batteries hadn't died. Anyway, looks like the bear's been busy. So a little further down the trail, the bear's been busy again. Early spring, very few food sources available, and the bear has ripped into this log and looked for grubs and things inside of it. There are some nice claw marks on here. Look right there. You can see some great bear claw marks in this, where you just ripped it apart. Now, it's not necessarily that hard to rip apart. I could probably do it with my fingernail, but the bear was hungry. See the footstep right here? Right here. See how it's all flattened right there? So it was standing there, and it did a lot of ripping and tearing to open up this log looking for food. It stepped right here. So normally the log would be clean, right? It just ripped all this apart. But it stepped right here and left mud on top of the sawdust that it had just ripped out of the log. So there's a footstep here where all this dirt is. And there's dirt here where it stepped, but right over here there's no dirt. So you can see the difference. Dirt, no dirt. So it definitely stepped there, tried to rip this apart, left some really sweet claw marks in it. Look at those. Those are beautiful. Where's the ruler? Here we go. 3-inch ruler. So really nice claw marks here. So yeah, the bear was busy, he was hungry. Hoping to find some food in here. Look at the galleries in here and this frass. This tells you that there was either beetle larva or carpenter ants or something was in here, and the bear was looking for grubs or ant larvae, whatever it could find to eat in here. And also, I'm going to step over here. Looks like the bear went into the spring right here, and this has been used as a wallow. This particular little spring here had water most of last season. Right now, there's no water in it, unfortunately. We had a little bit of rain, but we didn't have enough to really fill this up. So it looks like the bear stepped right in there. Possibly looking for water, possibly just, walking through, because it does appear that something went up this hillside right here. So, note the disturbance going through here. And, those knocked down ferns right here. See those? And it's hard to see underneath. But it looks like the bear went up the hill and through that vegetation there to get out of here. So there's definitely signs of disturbance in here. So he walked through. And it also appears that this was done around the time, or before the time that it rained, which was day before yesterday. Actually, yeah, it was the day before yesterday when it rained. So that's how old this damage is. So if you look up the hillside, it's pretty dense up there, but I'm sure the bear has a place to hang out. Anyway, that was kind of interesting. This log was solid last week. Not just solid, but solid as it can be when it's rotting away. But I was here a week ago. I have a camera down the way there that I check, and this log was still intact anyway, hadn't been ripped apart. So this was done within the week. I also wanted to show you this. So leaving the site of the log, note this disturbance here on the ground. So that is, again, the scent marking or trail making type of ritual marking that bears do, where they stomp and stomp heavily with their feet and turn around and come back and do it again. So the bear stopped here long enough to do a stomp trail, and you can see the big well-worn places where it placed its feet. Note these two right here, where it hit the ground and the force was forward, and it knocked this debris up into a little mound right there. And the same was true here. So it probably hit with both feet right here, maybe came down on both feet right here to push that debris forward like that. And this one, you can even see some of the footprint in it. You can see how it's flattened in here. You can see a toe mark right there if I pull some of that back. But yeah, there's the right foot right there, probably the right front. And then note again the mound of debris ahead of the mark there, and the same here. So this trail of disturbance goes quite a ways down here, and then he probably turned around, came back and did it again. Now there's a lot of disturbance all the way down here. And then you get to about here and it kind of peters out. So most of the markings back there were from the stomping activity. Here's one going the other direction. So at some point here he turned around and came back and did it again. So that's probably 25 feet or so of good stomping trail. So the bear went back and forth over this, it looks like, to really wear these into the ground. He may or may not continue to use this, and it just could be the first one that he's done this spring, because it is only the second day of spring. So I thought that was kind of interesting, and the bear did it right next to a log that he just ripped apart. Really cool. So the bear is coming downhill now, and its foot is impacting the ground. And note how it's the slide forward here. Get these leaves out of the way so you can see. See right here, this is where the heel hit, or rather the carpal pad hit right there. This is where the metacarpal pad was, and the toes are up here. And you can see that this grass has been knocked over and broken. And then up here, here's another one. This is a fairly hard stomp. Note the carpal pad right here, the metacarpal pad region here, and then here's the toes. So I'm going to pick these leaves out of here so you can see the sign better. But note the dirt on top of the grass there. Okay, here's the edge of the metacarpal pad right there. There's the carpal pad. There was a sliding motion forward, and that increased the impact on the ground, mashed these grasses into the ground, and the toes hit rather heavily right here. So you can actually see the toe imprints. But that's a black bear track right there. And here's a ruler, 3 inches for scale. So a little further along on the black bear's trail, there's a lot of disturbance and flattening to the soil here, as well as knocked off needles from a Douglas fir tree. So if you look closely, there are green needles all over the ground here. There's even a branch that got knocked off right here. Look at all the needles down here. Also note the broken leaves from this plant, which is a tan oak. So it looks like some scent marking happened here. The bear was marking on these trees, ended up breaking off a couple of branches. This end is just broken off. And these leaves down here have been turned with the bottom side up. So it looks like the bear probably straddled it in this direction, pulling it down as he straddled it. Note how the leaves on this side have all been turned with their lighter sides up. Over here, there's some damage, possibly from the foot, as the bear walked over this shrub. This is broken right here, and that's a fresh break, as well as this right here and this right here. Those are both broken off. There's flattening right here, and note that the pine needles have sand on top of them. So it's relatively fresh sign within the last couple of days, as is this broken off small branch from the Douglas fir tree, which I'm going to get to in a minute. But also notice that these leaves have been kind of curled and broken, And that's probably because as the bear walked over it, he stepped on them and crushed them. And these are also broken and show crease marks. These older ones are probably from last season, when the bear likely used this tree for straddle marking as well. So what they do is they straddle the tree, walk over it, and that rubs their belly on it, and it gets scent on this tree. And they will also urinate on it to leave extra scent. So this is part of a black bear scent marking ritual, and you can tell using tracking that it was recent, because all these things are still green, because the damage to the ground has not been changed by any rain. Now, let's look at this Douglas fir. And I'm seeing some broken needles in here, but the interesting thing is that these broken needles, which are 3 feet off the ground, have mud on them. And there were some over here also that had some mud on them right here. So there's some right there that also show mud. So, and they broke off. Let's look at the trunk, because the tree is leaning toward me, and that could only be because the bear played with it, or scent marked on it. So here is a fresh scratch mark. You can tell by the color of the bark right here that this hasn't had a chance to heal yet. It's also got dirt on it. So when I rub my hand on there, I'm getting sand and stuff off of that. Up here, here's some more damage that was done. This looks like swipe of a paw. Note a broken off Douglas fir needle right here, stuck in the bark where the damage was. Hopefully the camera's focusing here. There we go. Also note the damage to this branch here. And I have to keep my hand there so that the camera will focus on this so you can see it. So there's damage here. The bear probably grabbed it and pulled it down like this. That's also what happened down here. This is a grab this direction and pull the tree in that direction. So they will come up here and rub their backs in it and rub their fur all over these trees. And so a lot of damage happens to the bark and the branches when the bear does that. You get bark that's been scraped off. You get mud and dirt from the bear's body all over the tree. Here's a hair. I need to focus with macro to see that just a second. Okay, see the little hair right there stuck in the damaged bark of the tree, and that is a black bear piece of fur from the black bear that did the damage to this tree. Macro mode's kind of interesting because you can look up close and you can see the damage in detail. So you can see that there's dirt on this that will just come off on my hand. You can see the scratches. Let's go down here and look at these scratches. Focus camera, there we go. See this parallel scratches where the bear did his scent marking. And then up here as well, you can look at the break right here. So there was a lot of damage done to the tree by the bear during this scent marking ritual, and that's the idea. They want to leave their scent behind so that other bears are aware of them and can find them and know that they're around. So I expect this tree will get more damage over the summer as time goes on. This is just the second day of spring. So the bear's not done with it yet. There's more fur right in here. But this is what it looks like when a bear is marking scent on saplings. So those were just two very innocuous looking trees, and you know, they're not even, this one's not even 4 feet tall. That one's maybe 7 or 8 feet tall. And they are sitting by the trail side, but they are along a well-traveled bear trail. And I followed the tracks of the bear down here and noticed the damage and the accumulation of sign down here. So that's what told me the bear was using it. This tree over here was one that the bears used a couple years ago. And I showed this in a previous video. Doesn't look like it got used this time. Maybe. I think he maybe just walked over it. Oh, no, I'm wrong. Okay, he split the trunk on this one. So, looks like the bear was using this time, and it split the trunk down the center, knocking this part over. So, the bear is still using this one. it would be interesting to put a trail camera on this and see if he continues to use this particular tree, because now that it's knocked over, it's not as much a visual marker. But it would be interesting. So if I can find a way, I'll try to put a trail camera in here so you can actually see the bear in action, because there are 3 little shrubs right here that are 2 shrubs and a tree that the bear has been using for scent marking activities. It might be interesting if I can place a camera here so you can watch the bear in action. We'll see. Here's just another beautiful bear trail in new spring grass. My favorite time to trail them, because they just make such beautiful sign. And it just has this easy to follow trail, because the grass that's been stepped on shows a different color than the grass that hasn't been stepped on. So this is really the fun time to follow bears around, because their trails are so neat, and you know, you can just follow these for a long distance. He ends up right up there. Look at the even from here, the color change. Right here you can see where the bear walked. And that tree is a tree that they've used in the past to mark on. So I know they're gonna start using it again this summer. But I just thought that was an interesting trail. Really cool to see it in the new spring grass. So if the bear decides to use this trail over and over, it's gonna get worn into the ground and into the soil, the grass, even more than it is right now. And this is only probably a few uses of this trail. So it's pretty cool to see how these develop over the entire season. So there's some compressions in the soil right here. These are footprints made by the black bear. Right here you can see the metacarpal pad shape of the front right foot. And that bear headed straight for these shrubs over here. One of these is a huckleberry, and this one is an Douglas fir sapling. So what happened here is it looks like the bear straddled them, and they do this to straddle mark, which is where they deposit scent as they walk over it, straddling the brush. In this case, this got knocked over completely. Look at the base there, and look at the broken off branches. The top of it actually got completely broken off, and there's bear fur snagged right there, which I'll focus on in a second. But note how the top of this living tree has been broken freshly off right here, and the needles on the ground that got knocked off of this tree, and also how this, the evergreen huckleberry, has been bent forward. So this tree was one that the bear walked over, straddling it, and it's kind of interlaced with the Douglas fir here because the bear went over it, but it didn't spring back up. So note how it's bent right here, and there's damage to the leaves on the upper side. So this one was straddle marked by our bear. There's some evidence down here of old marking, but this right here is fresh. Right there looks like where he stepped. So two things. One right here, note the forward motion in that mark right there as the bear stepped through the bush right here. There's a footstep there, and there's a footstep here where he landed. Now note the fresh breaks here indicated by the lighter color of the bark. These are all the fresh breaks. This one is a living plant that was freshly broken. Some of these are dead stems that were broken, but those are new breaks. They have not aged. They haven't been sitting here all winter getting darkened up, because those will darken. So here's a fresh break that I just did to compare the color. Note how these have lightened just a slight bit because this was done a couple days ago. So this was stepped right there and right here. So let me refocus the camera and I'll show you that bear fur. So fur can be kind of difficult to focus on because it's such a small detail. But if I put my fingers behind it, you can actually see this bit of bear fur that has been snagged on the broken end of this Douglas fir sapling. So there's your clue as to who did this damage. Not only do you have the tracks that I showed you the sign, but you also have confirming evidence right here in the form of the bear's fur snagged right on the tree or sapling that the bear broke. So that's something to look for, and it's a very small detail, so the camera needs to use the macro mode to be able to focus on it, and it's having trouble maintaining that focus, but you can see right there is the bear's hair. So here's the overall view. You were just looking at the fur snagged right there. This is called straddle marking, and black bears do this to leave scent behind and let other bears know that they're around.